Hello. So to pick up from the conversation of the morning, uh, I in this video we'll play the Surge while discussing combat in this Soul series, I guess. It's initially, as I was saying, like Demon Souls, they somehow appeal to me while Dark Souls doesn't. And I can explain that in, I guess, just that at the time that I wanted to play Demon Souls, I'd only ever really heard of Demon Souls. I kind of knew Dark Souls existed, but Demon Souls, I think there was a Yahtzee video or something that he made. Just Demon Souls quite appealing to me, even though I don't think he did a very good review, but the setting that he described and sort of the way that you play the game, he just appealed to me for some reason. I just always wanted to try it out. And that appeal, I think the image he put in my head was of like going down a sort of dark, stony tunnel corridor with like your shield up and sword in hand and like mowing down enemies that come at you, which is essentially what the combat is like. And yeah, that combat kind of always appealed to me. I'll speak about like the setting of it all in the other video, but I thought it'd be best to like split them up. But yeah, so like that shield and sword combat is fun. This doesn't really have it. This has like a block mechanic, but I barely use it for reasons I can maybe discuss later. The Dark Souls combat, sorry, Demon Souls combat. I would say like I started off using there's like three ways that you can play Demon Souls. One is the swordy shieldy combat style, which is nice, slow and methodical. Like the cool thing about the combat as well is that like there are different ways to play it. Each game, I guess. Specifically talking about Demon Souls here, and they all have their advantages and disadvantages. Like they're all viable. Like you don't have to forfeit one playstyle just to play another. You can, well, like what I mean by that, yeah, is like you can choose how to play, and you know the game doesn't really like. Apart from maybe magic, I've heard magic is OP, but like I've never really played as magic. But yeah, the three different combat styles are like slow, methodical, shield, sword, or there's just like or even not even sword, like heavy sword, two-handed sword. Then you can use a shield, I guess. There are many different ways to play, but I guess I'm breaking it down into the main three. The main three are like shield in hand, slow, like heavily armored. The other one is like no armor, well, not no armor, but like light armor so that you can roll easily and dodge enemies rather than use the shield. And the third playstyle is yeah, magic, as I said. Magic, not played much of, but I've heard is pretty OP in that you can just sort of stand back and shoot magic at people, which I think I tried it and it is fun to like play as a wizard in the games. But I never had like a magic build or like a wizard build or whatever to fully utilize that because I heard it is kind of like OP in that way that it kind of breaks the game sometimes because the game wasn't really designed to be, well, as I say, it was designed to play with all different styles, but I think it's just Demons. I'm sure they've nerfed it in like the other games, like the Dark Souls games, but I think especially in Demon Souls, I think they hadn't really thought through the magic role quite as much as the other ones, and magic is kind of like OP in that one. But yeah, and the progress in the combat is nice because I started off playing Demon Souls with a sort of sword shieldy, sword and shield way of going about it. But as I got more confident while playing, I decided just to like ditch the shield and go into the sort of rolly mechanics and use them later in the game. So like that was really fun. And I guess what a very like appealing thing to me about the combat in the series as a whole is that you can actually see the combat sort of changing as well. Like the combat, again, I've only ever played Dark Souls 2. I'd say that each of the games have their own nuances, or their own like different ways, different stat mess ups or whatever. There's a thing called poise, which I don't really want to go into, but that like poise kind of is different in each of the games apparently. But and that apparently has a big effect on like how each of the games plays. But for the most part, I would say that the games kind of just play the same. Like the Souls games, at least that's Demon Souls and the Dark Souls games. Evergrace is a whole different like kettle of fish as well. But so that once I started playing it, that sort of way of combat really did appeal to me while playing Demon Souls. And as you get better, like I say, you feel a bit more courageous. You feel a bit more courageous and outgoing, and you just kind of there's lots of stuff to do with the combat. Like there are loads and loads of weapons, which I would say is maybe a main criticism on this. There are lots of weapons. Like if I go into the weapons here, you can see that's a decent amount of weapons. But the cool thing about Dark Souls is the animations that go into the weapons. Like if you see, where is the weapon thing? I don't want to do that. Like for example, these. Okay, yeah, no, the wee orange thing in the proficiency scaling, it says that changes depending on which weapon type it is, and I think there's only about 5 weapon types in this game. As you can see, those two have the same proficiency scaling. Those two are both like the same type. They'll both have the same animation, just different stats really. There's about 5 different proficiency or different types of weapons, I guess. You can see on the far right hand there, and that's fine. This game is fine with that. As I say, it's maybe one weak criticism, but that just means that like 2 different weapons will have the exact same animations, which in Demon Souls,
I'm not
example,
authorized to stop
really
you, but it is not
loads of different
recommended
weapons,
that you leave
and
operations.
most have very different animations. There may be some duplicates, but they're kind of few and far between. I don't really remember them myself, to be honest. But that's like one definite plus point on like I think Souls series as a whole, and that they're very good at their sort of weapon animations. And it's just like combat in general just feels fun in them. Like combat is really fun. This combat is okay as well, but I think this combat actually you get locked into too many animations, which can get quite annoying, I have to say. Like once I start doing a move, sometimes I can't stop because of the animations. Whereas Demon Souls, yeah, you feel like you've got a lot more control over the character of the Souls games. You've got a lot more control. But yeah, no, what I like as well about the development, the sort of progress of the combat throughout the Souls series as well. I think that's why I wanted to go back to play Evergrace initially. Because I wanted to look back, because I hadn't at that point. I always kind of thought Demon Souls was the starting point, I guess. But it was nice to go back to Evergrace and see like how all that all the combat developed. I mean, Evergrace is a very, very simple combat system. I don't think there are even shields in that. But yeah, quite simple in Evergrace. I think it's more sort of MMO RPG tier of combat where you just stand next to the enemy and they hit you, you hit them, sort of thing. Almost, but I mean not really. There are some other parts to it, but there's no sort of dodging or anything. There's like avoiding enemy attacks, but dodge or shield or anything. That's not what I wanted to do. Yeah, and I guess so the way I want to see the series develop, and I guess what appeals to me about Demon Souls and Bloodborne as well, is that
For your own safety, please stay within
combat-wise, I feel like
operations.
Dark Souls just kind of ripped off Demon Souls, in that they took the same animations, and I mean I know they're from the same dev, so it's not exactly ripping off, but you know it just seems to be too samey for my liking. So that's one thing that doesn't appeal to me about the Dark Souls series. I'll probably just, like, if I play it combat-wise, it'll probably just feel just like Demon Souls. So in that sense, I feel like I've already played Demon Souls. But then, yeah, there's other things about like Dark Souls as well.
Please report to incident command.
Dark Souls 1, I mean, I do want to play it at some point, but it's just, it doesn't appeal to me as much as Demon Souls. I think Demon Souls, I think Demon Souls is going to be the better of the lot, essentially, just from playing that one. But then Bloodborne kind of mixed it up. Like, it's all, I think, yeah, it went Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2, and then Bloodborne, and then Dark Souls 3. And I think, out of I think Dark Souls kind of maybe it advances on Demon Souls combat as well. I don't know, but Dark Souls 2, I've certainly heard, has a very different style of combat to Dark Souls 1 specifically. So there was a bit of difference in Dark Souls 2. That's one of the other reasons, I guess, that it drew me to it. In that, you know, they were trying to be different with this one, so. And I don't really know how much truth there is to that, because it felt kind of the same. I think the only difference in Dark Souls 2 is that it's the nuances that I talked, like poison stuff has changed or whatever. I don't know, I don't really go into all that, but Dark Souls 2 certainly felt different to Demon Souls in a subtle way, not a very obvious way. But Bloodborne is the one where the reason that appealed to me combat-wise is because, okay, it's by the From Software guys, but then what they decided to do with Bloodborne is basically say, we're going to take away the shields completely. So they... What? That's one of the animations I was talking about, that this game kind of sticks you in. Like, I couldn't get out of that spinny animation. I just had to let that go. Which is an annoyance. Yeah, Bloodborne
I'm not
kind of
authorized
took away
to
the shield
stop you,
completely,
but
and
it
just
is
gave
not
you a sort
recommended
of
that you leave
fast. It
operations.
took away magic completely as well, so essentially it boiled down from those three categories of combat that the Soul series always kind of had, to then just say, we're going to take one of those series and refine the combat around that one. And that's kind of what Bloodborne is. Like, Bloodborne is just like, take one of the combat types from the Soul series and make it itself, and it turns into less of an RPG, I'd say, and more of just a sort of combat Devil May Cry style game. I think that's what I find fun about that's what I found fun about Bloodborne, is that I would compare it, I think maybe I mean, maybe that's pushing it, comparing it more to DMC than Dark Souls. It's obviously very Dark Souls inspired, or inspired by the rest of the series, but it does feel more like a sort of action-y combat game than the others. Like, you don't take your time with it. You go through and do stylish stuff, and it's fun. So it was cool from a combat perspective to think that Bloodborne was just Demon Souls, but like with a more fast-paced, up-tempo combat system. And yeah, that's kind of just what appealed to me about that combat-wise. And I think I might have to say that's maybe something why, like, the reason that Sekiro, the new one, doesn't really appeal to me is that they've also I don't know. I've not seen much of the combat there. I guess there's some cool jumping mechanics that they've added to that, but that does kind of just seem like a Bloodborne-y style, but with you have like a grappling hook or something, which does seem fun. I think the whole main reason that Sekiro doesn't really appeal to me is because it's Dark Souls with samurai, and that's just what Nioh is, and I would rather play Nioh. So that's why I never really got drawn in by the Sekiro. So I'm now stuck in this animation, and that led to my demise last time. But then yeah, I do know that like Dark Souls 3 apparently went back to the sword, shield, and fast-paced, like the 3 different types of combat, but at the same time incorporated a lot more from Bloodborne into the series. So a lot of them, I don't know, some of the criticism people have online of Dark Souls 3 is that it's basically just Bloodborne 2, which would be fine actually, but I think actually, yeah, if I were to play a Dark Souls game next, it might even be 3. Although that one did just get a remaster, so... But yeah, essentially that's what we looked at with the combat. It was the sort of like nice, slow, methodical pacing of it. I didn't really know much about the RPG side of the games before I played them and got into them. Although, certainly once you play one of them, you know what the rest are going to be like, because they do all kind of the same style of like upgrading your attributes, and you know, weapons are tied to those attributes as well. So what attributes you have depends on what weapons you can use, etc., etc., and that changes your build up. So that's kind of how this one works as well. Like if I look at my specs or stats or whatever, you don't. Well, actually, no. This one is a bit different. You don't really upgrade specific attributes in this one, and you can use any weapon you want. This game actually is very different combat-wise from Souls games, even though it's more similar than, I guess, Immortal Unchained, because this one you do hit stuff just like in Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, and all that. When Immortal Unchained, obviously you shoot things, but this is a really cool enemy actually, and they seem to be crawling about everywhere. Like they were in the second area that I played, and there was like a secret area that had a couple of them, but this area just has loads of them rolling around everywhere, which is annoying. Yeah, what? It's been a while actually since I played this game. What is it that you do with the combat wise? You upgrade it. I think you just upgrade here, and you upgrade here, and that gives you more attributes like core power consumption, it says there, and the wee circle on the bottom is like your core power consumption, and each like piece of armor takes up a
Please remain in operations while security lockdown is in effect. So you can only
put on as much armor as you have like space that you've leveled up on your gear, which is interesting. And combat wise as well, I think you don't just target enemies to hit them, you can target specific areas, like weak spots and all that. There's a sort of risk reward in that if you target a strong area, you have the chance to like rip off especially if it's a humanoid, I think these things, but obviously if I aim at the arm, I'll rip off his arm like that. That's interesting. But if that was a human enemy, I would rip off their armor, and I would then pick up the armor and be able to use the armor, which is a cool aspect of this. It's like a risk reward. You want to go for the easy option of just killing them where they don't have any armor, or hitting their armor, which would take longer, and ripping it off so that you can use it later on. And it's funny in this one as well, like in Demon Souls I do quite like the sort of quick fast weapons that sort of stun locks enemies in a way, but in this game I like the big heavy weapons. I like the big heavy weapons because you just, I don't know, it's more fun. The animations are really slow in this game though, like the build up to actually attack. That's not just with this weapon, I might do a demonstration of like all the weapons. Although I want to go pick up my dead souls, my dead tech first, so I'll do that and then do a demonstration of like the 5 different weapon types and their animations. Because I really can't like praise the Souls games enough for like their combat animations. Their combat animations are really, really good. Really, well, quite detailed actually, and just like, yeah, feel like there's a huge variety of like, and a lot of time and animation that went into the combat. Just, oh shit. And that's me ripping off his head so that I can then take his armor, which I probably already have. But if you already have it, then you get like other stuff, obviously. Where's my dead stuff? Where's my dead stuff? Where? And then I will go off to show you the different attacking animations. Yeah, but like Demon's Souls specifically has really great animations, and that only like gets developed upon throughout the Souls series. Bloodborne has good animations. Bloodborne's quite unique in the series in that there aren't that many weapons. I think there's only 13 weapons total in Bloodborne, but they act very differently and they act very cool. So that's me pressing R1 once, pressing it again locks me in that animation, and pressing it again locks me in that animation. Like that was just 4 button presses, and you can't get out of them. But then you've also got like vertical, and you see kind of like how slow the build up before you actually attack, so you do need to sort of watch out what enemies are doing. Again, you need to make sure that you've got like an opening. So that was the large type. If I then try this one, which is like a chainsaw thing, I think even this has like, yes, that's even got a slow start to it, and that annoys me, because that means that like you can't just run in and start attacking an enemy. You've got to actually, you have that build up before attacking, which can be annoying. And then you've got the combo there. You can get more combos in because there's a lighter weapon obviously, but I feel like these sort of weapons don't really stun enemies as much. I mean, chainsaw thing's alright, but then yeah, just as an example, so that's that type of weapon. If I pick another weapon of the same proficiency scaling, this for example, it'll have the exact same animation, just like different stats for the weapon itself. Wait, what? That does have a different animation. What? So we did 2 and then goes two-handed there. I'm gonna double check that. 2 and then goes double-handed. Oh, yeah, okay. Animation is different. Oh, I take it back. I've only ever seen that, for example. Well, I must stand corrected with this game then. It does have some decent animations. That's quite cool, because that's like a wee hatchet type thing. He's swinging it about a bit like a hatchet. Yeah, I might try that weapon out. I think I was just going with the heavy weapons, because the heavy weapons just all act the same. So you do the spinny spin thing, and that's like another heavy weapon. That just led me to believe that like all the weapons kind of had the same animation. But yeah, I think even that's actually a wee bit different than my main one. Although not really. Nah, that's, yeah, so that's the exact same animation as that weapon. And I'm sure there was another one. I think this one. Yeah, this one has the exact same animation, as some other weapon. But to be fair, it's actually fine if only a couple weapons do it. Yeah, that weird jump thing. And then if I change to that guy, I'm pretty sure this has the exact same animation. Yeah, weird wee jump. Just the weapon has a bit slower stats. Okay, well I got confused. I thought all the weapons of that type just had the one animation, just with different weapon stats, damage, and what have you. But stand corrected on that one. They actually do have different animations. Some of them. I think there's maybe more duplicates on this, but kind of example of what I mean by like the different animations of Dark Souls as well. these weapons are okay, but a wee bit crap. They're like the fast weapons. Don't do much damage, but they do stun enemies, I think. But not when you need them to. Like the big weapons, the big heavy weapons that I use are a lot better at stunning them. What this stuff's like. Fancy. Staffs could be alright to use actually. I've not used staffs yet. Even they have like a sort of that wee build up before attacking. It's almost like this. That must be a like before the actual attack hits. There's maybe a second or so before anything connects with the enemy. So you've really got to watch out, make sure they're not attacking. Maybe a wee bit longer, but what's this have? That you just attack straight away. Like these are obviously the fast weapons that you just want to get in. But they never stun the enemy straight away. Like they stun the enemy after a few hits. But they never, like, if I just did that, the enemy would still be busting through my move, so there's no point trying to jump in and stun an enemy with that. I like the idea of the hatchet. I'm going to try the hatchet out. I'm just going to go in and die here, because that enemy is really hard, and I do actually need a much stronger weapon. But hey ho. I'll try it on the humanoid enemy first, I think. But I mean, combat in this game is decent. Oh, there he is. Seems okay. Right. This will be the ultimate test if I can. Oh shit. I don't actually want to fight that enemy with this weapon. I want to fight him with the big weapon. The big bad mean weapon. If I can get his attention. Oh, come on. But this is kind of like what the a lot more similar to the Souls combat than Immortal Unchained. Immortal Unchained basically feels just like a shooter. You'll see in the next video when I play some of that. And top bits. Ah well. Yeah. Move on to the next game. Oh, well, I guess I could talk about this game setting. This game setting's okay. Like, what I don't particularly like about this game is that the shortcuts in the levels seem quite
please stay within operations.
Obvious in a way that, like, so down here, I'll go down here, and so there's a lift that I could take, but it's currently out of order. So in my head I'm like, well, okay, that's going to be a shortcut later on, so I'm going to somehow find, like, somewhere else I'm going to find a shortcut that leads me back here. Same with these doors are locked right now. Essentially, like, the way that Dark Souls and these sort of games are done is that you go through stages but you find shortcuts to, like, get you back to the save points. Kind of, I'm assuming like Darksiders 3 you played, but maybe to a greater extent. I don't know if that's like, I'll tell you yet, but it's like, yeah, there's the one save point that I keep spawning back to whenever I die, and one save point I keep spawning back to whenever I die, and you just, like, find shortcuts. And the one complaint I have about this game is that you can tell where the shortcuts are. Like, it's always locked doors and stuff, and it's kind of just like, there's nothing that really surprises you. Like when you find, I mean, it still surprises you in a way, but it's like when you find a door and it takes you back there, it's like, oh yeah, that shortcut, cool. But whereas Dark Souls obviously does, or Demon Souls does that much better. Bloodborne 2, it just feels like the environments are a lot more fluid and a lot like the shortcuts are, I can maybe show it better in the Unchained video when I'm playing Unchained, Immortal Unchained even, in that the environment, the shortcuts, sorry, just feel more natural, more fluid, rather than just like a door that is locked and then you open it later. I think I might be coming up to a shortcut. Once I beat that thing that killed me last time. Try and beat it again actually. And then I guess I'll end the video. But setting outside of that is nice. Like, I do like the sci-fi setting. What? I do like the sci-fi setting. It's very pretty when you're outside. When you're inside, everything kind of looks the same. However.
Your honesty is humbling. The truth is, while politicians,
Gets my health back.
scientists were fighting and trying to explain, you stepped forward with the solution.
So yeah, so these cat things like all over. I don't know why I call them cat things, but do they look like cats? Maybe they look like cats. All I know is that they're like all over the place, and I don't like that because they're hard enemies. But it's nice that, especially in games like this, that you can, again back to combat, it's like enemies just sort of walk around and don't bother you until you bother them, in a way, I guess. Which is nice, it allows you to sort of sit around and plan your attack. The thing I like about this weapon is that I can just mash R1, and most of the time my my combo will just kind of annihilate them without giving them a chance. I think that's what I find annoying about these enemies. I can't just combo them, I actually have to be smart about it. Smart about it. I'll try and be a bit more smart about this one. Oh shit. Right, I'll just do 2 and hop out for the best. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, see, and they jump too far away, so you don't really get a chance to come in with the attack. Oh, good. Got him. Finally. What? Okay. Yeah, it's nice in this, like I say, do that wee finisher, that's like the square that pops up. If you attack one piece of armor consistently, then the wee square thing pops up and you can do like that wee finisher. The wee finisher allows you to rip off his armor and you can take that. I like that aspect of it. Oh, what's down here? Oh, don't. No. Do I? What's this? Oh no, that's gonna come alive. Fuck off. Because that's the thing, in the area that I was in before with these guys, they were all dead like that, and they only came alive if you went near them. So I think that thing might go back to life. So what's that done? Open this gate. Use terminal to connect the door. Lift unlock for unlimited use.
You know this stuff is toxic, right? We can't just keep dumping it wherever on the facility. We've had another accident, and thank God he's only a cripple. Or is it cheaper for the company if they're killed outright? Listen, if the EHA ever heard of any of these incidents, we'd be closed down faster than one of those rockets goes up.
So if I go down here, I bet you this will take me back to that one that I showed you before. And by that, I mean that, like, yeah, there's just no surprise to it. Like, that was a shortcut that in Demon Souls would give you like a sort of like, whoa moment. But in this it's kind of like a, well yeah, because I saw that lift before. And when I see that lift I'm like, oh, that'll definitely take me back. Anyway, that's enough talking about this game. This game's decent. I do enjoy it, but there's some things that could be improved with the
Please stay within operations until the area is clear.
setting's decent enough. But I think, yeah, combat could be improved. Anyway, end of the video.